Systems, the mechanics.
Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everybody. What's up? Yeah, Karen, you got in just in time. What is up, everybody? So, for those of you who don't know, I am about to hop on a plane in a couple hours. A better question would be, why are you awake, sir? I am awake because it would be easier for me to just stay up than try to fall asleep and then wake up and then drive to the airport and then get on a plane and fly to Portland. So, because, there's no way I'm getting to bed at, 10 o'clock or something like that. So instead, when I got home from the doctor's today, I had an afternoon appointment at the doctor's, I took a nap. So I took a nap for, I don't know, about maybe like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, maybe. Caught up with my dogs, took a nap, woke up, got something to eat, and finished up my packing. And so I figured I would just hang out, stream, shoot the shit with folks. And then, I got a 5:30 a.m. flight to catch. So I'll probably have to leave here. We'll start looking to shutter down around 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m. or so, give or take. Not that I expect there to be a lot of traffic at 4 in the morning, but the things I do for Stephen Glicker and Roll for Combat. Anyways, so yeah, it's going to be a long travel day. Unfortunately, I could not find a direct flight. Like, it wasn't even a question of price. I could not find a direct flight from Cleveland to Portland. Now, you might say, Derek, PAX is in Seattle. Yes. But Roll for Combat's warehouse is in Portland. So, we are flying. We're leaving our respective homes, flying across the country. I have a layover in Denver in the middle of the day or middle of the morning. Then I hop on another plane, finish my drive to Portland. We're going to get a van. We're going to load up with a bunch of RFC books, and then we're going to drive that thing up to Seattle so that Thursday, we can set up the booth, get everything ready, and then the con itself is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because it is, of course, Labor Day weekend. So, and then Tuesday, I fly home also with a layover. I'm not sure where the layover is on the way home. Less concerned. So, yeah. You still don't think you've made the layover? Well, that is because I have not updated that list in a long time is the answer. That would be why. Geez, I don't even know. Where do I even keep it these days? Partially because, here we go, patrons. All right, hold on a sec. The legends. Agile Monk. All right. We got you. I just added you, Agile Monk. There we go. Appreciate you. So next time you'll be on the list. How do you keep your warehouse safe in Portland? That's a great. Oh, you're asking Roll for Combat, not me. Denbeck, I don't know. I get in before. Steven, and then let's see here. Yeah, I get in before Steven, so I'm going to be over to the warehouse first, helping kind of set it up. I think he gets in around noon, so I don't know. We're probably leaving. I'm hoping we're leaving before 2. I have no idea I've heard that I've heard that the traffic can be pretty nasty. So my hope is that, with Steven arriving around noon, the warehouse is like less than a 10, 15-minute drive from the airport. So I'll hopefully have it packed up, and then hopefully we can hit the road by 1 p.m., but certainly before 2 p.m., and we can hopefully avoid the worst of it. So there we go. Beowulf, we're talking, he's talking about this. Nope, that's not it. Anyways, we're talking about the we're talking about the scrolling list when the stream starts off with all the patrons, and is this it? There we go. This one, this list, and his name wasn't on it, and it's only for people that are hero tier or higher. So, but like 10 or 20 of these people aren't even on our list, or aren't even patrons anymore. So yeah, we have to update it. Anyways, so yeah, more. This is I'm streaming. Otherwise I would just be sitting here late at night. I kind of took care of everything I needed to take care of today. So really, it's just whatever we kind of want to talk about. I mean, I'm fine with that. We're gonna try upping our bit rate. YouTube's been kind of a pain in the butt lately. I didn't figure late night stream like this, 30 viewers. I mean, we're not expecting too much here. Ooh, creppy. Just aim to be north of the Columbia River before 3, and traffic's not too bad. I drive 100 miles a day on average in Portland, and we're okay. Well, shit. There we go. Right, Vancouver, not the one in Canada. Right. I know that there's a Vancouver, Washington, right, which is just over the border, I think. What's up, Force? Yeah, I sleep pretty well on the. I mean, unfortunately, I do have a layover I have to change planes in Denver, which sucks because otherwise I'd probably just honestly sleep the whole flight. I can sleep pretty well. I could sleep pretty well on a plane, but yeah, I'll bring some stuff. I usually put on my good old reliable Bose noise canceling headphones, and I usually put on some music, and I usually just fall asleep. But we'll see what the situation is, what's going on. But I bring a book just in case. I always bring my notebook as well, my bullet journal. If I want to jot ideas down or jot notes down and all that other jazz. Take care of this. I have not seen the live action Avatar series because I have not had any streaming service in, I don't know, 5 years. So I actually haven't watched a TV show. I don't think I've watched a TV show 5 or 6 years. The last TV show I saw was the final season of Game of Thrones, which I watched over someone else's house. I think that's the only thing. Well, I'm working, so I'm not actually attending the con. But the answer probably would be no, because PAX is predominantly a video game convention. It's really about video games and what I would call nerd culture, which, strangely enough, I'm not really a part of. Because nerd culture today means something very different than I think it used to. Nerd culture today, maybe once upon a time, meant like Star Trek, Star Wars, who knows, Conan the Barbarian. But I feel like nerd culture today means more like anime and video game. And I don't like either anime or video game. So I'm not, and I also am not really big into like the modern version of collectibles. Like I don't like Funko Pops and most of that nerd adjacent shit that is out there today. So yeah, so basically, no, there is nothing. In fact, I looked through the guest list, and I don't think I knew anyone. PAX West guest list. Let me see if I can bring this up here. Here we go. I'll show you all. Here we go. Maybe let's see what's. Hop over to the PDF. Let me grab a window capture. Oh, nope, that's our stream. There we go. Okay. So we've got. It's apparently people really love voice actors. So. I mean, this is kind of cool. I've never played Stardew Valley, but I certainly respect. I'm assuming Eric Barone is the person who made Stardew Valley. It's just Stardew Valley. I can't imagine it would be anything else. But again, I don't really. Yeah, I'll fuck your cookies. So yeah, Charlotte Hopfner. Okay, like number one, I don't know who she is, but then I see it's Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which I'm assuming is a video game. But even if it was a video game, and even if I fucking loved that video game, why the fuck do I care about this person? I don't. I'm assuming she's a voice actor. I don't know. But it doesn't say she's a voice actor. So maybe not. Maybe she's like the lead writer or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, point is, it's a video game thing. So video game. Now, they are going to have some Square Enix folks there, which is pretty cool because once upon a time, I did like Final Fantasy. Not anymore. But they are remastering Final Fantasy Tactics, and Final Fantasy Tactics is one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, and I must admit that the original version, while awesome, was a little rough. And so apparently, so I've heard, is that Yoshi P is going to be there. So there he is. And I don't know if I'll be able to go to any of these, but he's doing a story time from 11 to noon. I don't know if you need tickets. I don't know anything about how PAX works. But the relationship between game design and art direction, with Naoki Yoshida and Hiroshi Minagawa, which is sweet. And then story time with Yoshi P. So he's flying from Japan to do 2.5 hours of seminars. One on Friday, one on Sunday. I don't know if he's doing some other stuff there, but anyways, that's pretty cool. I don't actually know if I'm going to be able to go there, but there we go. And then apparently the back button doesn't work. There we go. I don't know what happened. Did I lose my internet? Am I still streaming? Maybe not. Okay, I'm still streaming. I know that I've had this problem before when I stream. So, yeah. So, yeah, so this is what I was trying to say was that around midnight, I think Spectrum just like turns off all of their servers. I don't know if it's like routine daily maintenance, but they literally, I think, do this at midnight. And like, I might no longer be able to stream like from 11 to 1 a.m. or something like that because it is so bad. And like, there's just so many server errors and streaming errors and everything like that. Like, it's just completely ridiculous. No, this is not. I've kind of boiled it down to it not being YouTube because the fact that like I'm having Cloudflare issues and stuff like that. It's definitely some sort of like gateway DNS. It's Spectrum. Spectrum sucks so bad. I wish I could be on AT&T so bad. Not only because I want the fiber and I want the high speed gigabit internet, but because my upload speed is just terrible. I mean, I pay a lot of money for the best upload speed, but it's garbage. It's like 20 megabits per second. But anyways, well, at least somebody said that the PAX site seems to be down for them too. So, all right. Well, anyways, but yeah, Spectrum's terrible, and I've had them forever because that's the only option we have here. But I can get AT&T, but it's like not AT&T fiber. It's like somehow it's just like super old school AT&T, like for old people who like want to remember what it was like back in the 80s when you had AT&T. So any case. All right, looks like it might finally be working. Okay. Again, the internet sucks nowadays. Who knows? So anyways, all these people here. Composer for Star Wars and Helldivers 2. Okay. Apparently they have every single person here from Claire Obscure. A streamer, Air Bubbles cosplay. Like, I don't care about that. Another streamer. And here's the thing. These streamers, never heard of them. Alex Kokia, Abdallah Smash, Alt Tab Cozy Horror. Oh, there's someone I actually know or recognize. Bill Amond, who is the creator of Foxtrot. So again, all these people, not a single clue. Hey, Chris Perkins. All right, one person. I know one person. Chris Perkins is there. More voice actors. Hey, look. I don't know. Steven's probably not on there. Diana Faye made the list, Steven. She has good agents, I guess. Yeah. There's Jerry, and of course, Jerry Hulkins, but I mean, he's the person who actually, runs Penny Arcade, so of course he's there. But obviously, Jeremy Crawford, more voice actors, more streamers, of course, Mike Kralik, more cosplayers. Yeah, I don't know any of these people. Don't know them. Nope, don't know them. Nope. Okay, there you go. Those I know like 3 or 4 people. So, point is, I know nothing. But again, I've never been to PAX. Well, this is my first year going to PAX East, and now I'm going to PAX West. So, it should be interesting. But no, it's a business. It's a business trip. It went something like. I believe it went something like this. Steven went, Derek, I need help running the booth. You're unemployed. You're not doing anything. You can come, right? ? And I said, sure. And he said, great. And somehow I'm now in for all of these. So that was basically the extent of the business transaction. Yeah, well, unfortunately, I moved here before fiber optic was even a thing, and it's still not a thing. Although I have seen signs in nearby neighborhoods with like AT&T fiber is coming. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm more of a professional convention attender now. I mean, they're fun. I enjoy the atmosphere. I like working the booth. I like talking to people, and obviously I like talking to people about games, so that's always fun. But obviously, like Gen Con and Origins are very different experiences than PAX was, and what I'm assuming PAX West will be. But, it's fine. It's fun. I mean, I don't stream full time. Streaming full time would imply that I am streaming 40 hours a week, and I'm not streaming 40 hours a week, Force. Also, I think there were a couple times this week where I streamed. I mean, actually, you can see it. You can see it on the screen. The last time I streamed, I made $37. So, I may be working. I don't know if I'm being paid. So it's a tough gig. I don't know how these people do it. The people who play, they literally stream they stream every day. Oh my God. That would be incredibly horrible, especially if you're literally doing the same thing. At least we have a lot of variety here, and we talk about different topics and we talk about different games, which I think is really cool. But if I was just playing, I don't really like video games, but if I was just playing Magic or something like that, 6-7 hours a day, every day on Twitter, that would be tough. Yeah, see, that's a term I don't even know. What's a caster versus a streamer? I actually don't know. I could be the Hassan Piker, another name I don't know. I know nothing, people. I'm clueless. Anyways, we seem to have gotten through the woes of the YouTube hookups. I mean, I met someone at Gen Con, and unfortunately, I did get her name, but her business card, but her name escapes me. As it was, hey, Edward.
Edward tipped $20, upped my Patreon pledge today, but here's some more money because I appreciate you. Thanks for all you do.
Hey!
Hashtag Dagger Hype, hashtag Dagger Reaches.
Hey, that's awesome. I'm glad you upped your patronage. Hopefully you're upping it so that you can maybe get, or maybe you're looking to play, Dragon Tide. Maybe you're looking to play Northern Reaches. Maybe Dagger Reaches. We need to come up with a name for that, by the way. Edward, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm glad you upgraded. You were waiting for something. So I will say, you know, if and when a Dagger Reaches happens, it will require an upgrade for to at least champion tier. So I really appreciate you that. Okay. Sweet. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, which given the late night and the group that we have here, you probably do. We just recently started onboarding for a brand new mega game. So we have an existing mega game, which we've been running for several years. We run it in seasons. And it's called Northern Reaches, and it's based on Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which isn't to say that it is Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because there's a lot of variants and rules. But the idea is that you have 50 or 60 or 70 people playing in a community campaign. Last year, we kind of started throwing around the idea of doing another version of that with Dragonbane, which is one of the more popular games on our channel, one of the more popular games in our community, and it's certainly Hype Man Bob from the Knight's favorite game. And so we started putting together a very ambitious plan to create a really, really comprehensive game. Unfortunately, it never launched last year or this beginning of this year because, you know, I had a lot of stuff going on, and, you know, I was having some mental health issues, and then I was having my life is on fire issues. But Bob persevered, and while it is not the full version of what I wanted it to be, it is still pretty cool. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're treating it more as like a beta release, you know, and there's going to be a lot of room for feedback and advice and changes. And we really also kind of want to test the waters, because the truth of the matter is it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to put, you know, 100 hours of development into a game that might only have 20 people playing in it that were kind of already signed up for the Patreon. But if we get, you know, 40, 50 people playing it, and maybe we can actually get some new blood into the community because of it, then it becomes more of a possibility that I can, you know, spend some of my admittedly limited development time doing it. Everything comes down to just scope, time, and resources, basically. What do they call that? The triangle, the project manager triangle or something. Anyways, Dagger Heights. No, I don't think we would have the word dagger in the term there. Yeah, he sent me a message immediately that you signed up. No, that's a game that just won some Ennies that people have been wanting me to talk about. Yeah, Shadram, it's probably their fault. Since this is a loosey-goosey stream, it sure is, Rob. I know you're not a 5e guy, but what are your thoughts that Dark Sun may be returning in this day and age? Well, Rob, my thought is it's not returning. But they just threw it into Unearthed Arcana because, you know, they want to mine the well of their IP for as much as they can. At this point, I kind of think Wizards of the Coast thought process is we don't really have to create anything new anymore. We can just kind of dig up the bodies from our previous years and rehash it, because the old people will be like, wow, it's a nostalgic callback to my youth, to the 90s and to the 80s. And then the new people, it'll just be new to them. And so why create anything new when you can just kind of go back to the well? That being said, you're not going to see any sort of like actual setting for it. Honestly, given the popularity of Curse of Strahd, I'm surprised they haven't completely brought back Ravenloft. But yeah, so anyways, I think that them releasing that on Unearthed Arcana is just sort of like almost more of like an Easter egg, because again, the people who know, and the people who don't know don't care, and so, you know, it works out. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. I think Dark Sun's interesting. But the elements that make Dark Sun interesting to me are not really well supported in 5th edition. And I'm not talking about like the moral issues of like slavery and defiling and preserving. I just mean like the harshness and, I don't even know that AD&D 2nd edition, quite frankly, really handled it all that well. But yeah, I still think D&D is principally a kind of a dungeon exploring battling game mostly. And arguably, while there are many people who loved those settings from the 90s, myself included, mostly they didn't work out that well. Dark Sun, Planescape, I mean, these things all technically kind of contributed to the ruin of TSR. So, Sean Merwin mentioned something about that playtest that stuck with me. Why am I allowed to play a Defiler or Sorcerer King Warlock when D&D is supposed to be a heroic game? Well, a couple of things. Number one, Derek, Defilers existed back in the day anyways. But number two, the Warlock has been in there since 5e. So, the Warlock is somebody who, sells their soul to some dark patron for shadowy powers. Why is that a part of our heroic game? I don't know, but it is. Excuse me. So apparently there were a whole bunch of Avatar games at Gen Con this year. I'm going to go with false. There wasn't. There were a lot of events, but that doesn't mean that there were a lot of games. So when people, again, it's just questionable data analysis, right? Right. There's 3 types of lies, right? Lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can make those values say whatever you want. But no, Magpie runs too many. They run a trillion events. And they mostly pad out their events with corporate events that are usually like 1 hour learn to play type events. So if you think like a 1 hour like learn to play type event is a valid, it counts as an event, I don't think it does. The other thing that didn't Professor DM didn't look at is like how many of those events actually sold out. So if an event falls in the middle of a Gen Con and no one was around to hear it, does it count as a game? I don't know. So let's see if we still have information. Let's see if this information is still up. Yeah, it looks like it is. Okay, so here we have all the games and all the events. So you can see like Dungeons and Dragons, right? And has Dungeons and Dragons has 1,275 events that you can sign up for. And if we look at Avatar Legends, obviously there's Avartar, and then there's Avatar Legends. But then we have Avatar Legends the RPG. So presumably that is the real one. I mean, somebody else might have run an event. And if we click on this and we look at this event, so you can see that you have all of these demo games, right? This is a demo game. So you've never been to Gen Con, obviously. So it's kind of difficult to explain what this is, but the bigger manufacturers, the people who have more money and or more presence at the con, will typically sort of buy a room, usually near or outside of the con hall, usually outside of like Hall H or Hall G, and they'll take over an entire room. Free League does this. Avatar does this. Or Magpie, I should say, does this. Cypher Games does this. Monty Cook Games, I should say. Monty Cook Games does this. The brother... who the fuck did Cosmere? Brotherwise? Who did Cosmere? Whatever. They did this. So Magpie actually kind of takes over like an entire floor of an adjacent hotel. They take over the 3rd floor, I think the 4th floor of the Hyatt. So anyways, so here you see all of these demo games, right? So, and they're an hour long. They were 5 out of 5 tickets available. And these got counted as an event, But these are basically just, you know, people who showed up and basically like who've never played a PBTA game before, blah, 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 blah. Then you had the intro. So this is literally just a demo game. Like this isn't even a full, I mean, it's an hour long, right? This is where they just kind of like, I don't know, walk you through how to make a character maybe. I don't even know. Then we have an intro game. Now, to be fair, some of these did sell out, but this is still only 2 hours. So my guess is this is sort of like the basics of the game, and then they do like one encounter. I've had people who've played these before, and they say that a lot of the times the GMs don't even know how to run PBTA games. So I still don't know that I would even count these as a real session. Okay, so now we have Last Village Standing. We have Leaving Home. This is a 4-hour standard slot. This is a 4-hour standard slot. You can see it's limited to 5 people. These are mostly all sold out. It's a $10 event. It runs for 4 hours. It's probably a one-shot. If we take a look here. Doi Village has survived centuries of hardship, but now they need help. Only problem? Spirits around the village despise outsiders. Can the companions break through, or is something else afoot? So yeah, this is a, you know, what I would call a quote unquote real game. So when you start counting only the real games, that number becomes much smaller. Now that's not to say that Avatar didn't have a good number of events, but just realize that a lot of the, you know, there's a good chunk of events here that, you know, that weren't what I would consider to be a real event. And then even if you did consider them to be a real event, they weren't sold out, and we don't really know how many people actually played in them. So, you know, if we go over to Blade Runner, you can see here again, you know, you had, now these are part 2s. I think you had to play through part 1, which is why they're not sold out. But because it's $106 to buy this, and but that gets you into all 4 parts. But you know, you can see here that their game slots, you know, were again 2 hours long. Is that a real full game? I don't know. So hey, look, there was one event of break. But anyways. But even then, Shadram, those aren't really the truest numbers, because a lot of these are the event tickets that sold prior to Gen Con. For all we know, those people didn't show up, and or people showed up with generic tickets and got in and played those games. We also don't know if a game got canceled. So, for example, a game may show that it had 3 tickets or 4 tickets sold for it, but when those players showed up, the game never happened because the GM didn't show up, or there was a problem or whatever. And believe it or not, that happens an unfortunate amount as well. So in terms of like real data, we'll probably never actually know, you know, unfortunately for that. Does someone want your break book? It's still in the shrink. It's a beautiful book, but pass. I mean, ding, 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 ding. It's why I don't really play con games, honestly. You know, it's terrible, but for a long time, I used to go to cons with my buddies, my game group, and we would just go to Gen Con so that we could just play the same games that we always played at home, but we play with them with each other, and we would just play them all the time. You know, the con games can be fine, but I think it's a very a mixed bag nowadays. The other problem that doesn't get talked enough about is that a lot of these larger companies have grown, and a lot of the larger companies have grown, and as they've grown, they've had to hire people to come in and run the games for them. And these are people who are mostly running the games just so that they can get a free badge or a free hotel room, which are otherwise difficult to get. Basically, it's kind of like a work for con relationship. And that means that they may not actually know the game that well. There's not a really good feedback system in place. And unfortunately, a lot of these GMs, I think, are very questionable. Now, that is true, but you have to understand that was not any of these games. Okay? In fact, the best role-playing games experience that you will have at Gen Con is actually not found under the role-playing game header of all 6,275 events, unfortunately. The best role-playing games that you will find at Gen Con is found under this big Z, which stands for Zed, which is the Isle of Misfit Events, which is another way of saying they don't know where else to put it, so they put it in the Z category. If you go to the Isle of Misfit Events, you will find Indie Games on Demand. And you will see that none of the tickets sold. And that's because there's no point to buying the tickets. All of these things. And you also see that they only run for 2 hours. And this thing will also tell you nothing about it. But this is the best role-playing that you can this is the best role-playing games that you can play at Gen Con. This is basically like pick up RPGs run by volunteer GMs who volunteer only to run the games that they're interested in. Then you build your group ad hoc. You don't know what game you're signing up for when you sign up. They call your number. You get to look at what is available. And a GM is only going to run a game that they want to run and then they know how to run. A lot of times the people running the games are like people who might be like help develop it or were initial groups of the playtesters, friends of the author. In fact, when I ran my first experience with running Monster Hearts was my GM was Kira McGran, and now she's a multi-award-winning tabletop role-playing game and LARP designer, queer, non-binary human, and snake friend living in Columbus, Ohio. But back then, she was just a GM who was friends with Avery Alder and was running the game for her. So, you know, the quality of the GMing there is through
Calderi Arc tipped $3. I played some Lego Pirates at Gen Con its first year in Indiana and it was fun, but the guy next to me was a bit of a buzzkill cause he just blew my ship up to test the combat. I was able to countersink him. That said, it was cool what the others did.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you know, people ruin everything just like anything else. So there is that, you know. Just to test the combat, but yeah, I mean it is Lego Pirates, so I can't be too mad at somebody wanting to test the test the combat. Yeah, correct. They don't want to run the game well or accurately, which is why this past year, a couple months ago, when we did at Origins 2025, most of the knights of Last Call who came. We had about 20 or so patrons come. They mostly just played games with other patrons who they never met before. You know, some of them had met up in person, but most of them had never met each other before. But they knew each other from the Discord. They knew each other from the channel, and they just ran games for each other. So much so that we are considering sponsoring Origins next year so that we can get our own dedicated room, so that we have our own private room. That way we can just have our own space where we can set up and run games for each other. So it'll be kind of like a night con inside of a con. And I'm hoping that we can maybe get like 30 people, which would be pretty great if we could, you know, keep it going, keep it running. But yeah, that, like anything, you know, your con experience is really going to come down to the people that you're playing with. And then that, the other thing, too, I don't know if this is true or not. It's late, so I can say things that I don't normally say. And I'm not really trying to, like, out anybody here. I'm making a broad, generic statement, so don't read too much into this. But a lot of those games that I played, those Monster Heart games, those Dungeon World games, those Blades in the Dark games, those early games that I played at Indie Games on Demand, were played with people prior to like the COVID era, Stranger Things era, Critical Role era D&D blow up. You know, this is just a generic. This is an observation that I've made in my history, in my professional career. There have been times at all of my businesses where you know, that I worked for, not that I owned, where, like, you know, there was a regular pace of hiring and, you know, we needed to replace people. Someone would leave. You'd have to hire them. And I found that generally we hired very high quality people. You know, that the people that came in were very high quality. But I've also been at companies where, you know, we were going through a really explosive growth era where maybe the insurance company I was working with was like growing at 30 or 40% top line premium. And it was kind of like, we just need to hire. We need to fill seats. We need to get bodies in the door. And the quality of the hires was lower. So I find that like explosive growth doesn't always bring in the best quality of people. That's not to say that there aren't quality people in that group, but that you also just get a much larger segmentation of the population, which includes some people that maybe aren't as good quality, which is my way of saying very, very, in a very gatekeepy way, but I don't mean it to be gatekeepy. It's just an observation that I've made, which is that when I was playing these like RPGs back in the day at cons in the 2010, 2012, 2014, 2015 era, the quality of the people that I played with was much higher, GMs and players. Since sort of the blow up of 5th edition D&D and this massive influx of people into the hobby, which may very well have been you, but you're here watching this, so clearly you're a cut above. I have found that the average quality of game masters and players has decreased significantly. And as there's no scientific data for this. This is just my totally biased view from going through a lot of conventions and playing in a lot of games and meeting a lot of people. And again, there are still incredible people out there who are playing the games and running games, but I found that the average, right, quality has dropped. And I just think that's because I don't know. I don't know if it's the environment into which they are coming in. I don't know if it's Shadram's point here. I think it's just people introduced by Critical Role expect to show up and be entertained by the GM. Maybe. But those damn normies, I don't know. I don't actually know what it is. I could, because I'm biased and I hate things, I might as well I could blame video games and anime while I'm at it, right? So but whatever it is, and again, that, by the way, that's relative fun for me. I mean, there might be other people who are really digging these games and really enjoying it, but for me, I have found it to be a less enjoyable experience. I have found the players base tends to be much less engaged, much less proactive, more interested in just sort of sitting back and kind of sort of having sort of something be told to them. It could be an age difference, true, but I mean, when I was going through this experience, I was in my early 30s. Now I'm in my late, then I was in my late 30s. Now I'm in my early 40s. I don't think it's like such a massive age difference that it doesn't make a difference. But in general, I have noticed, and by the way, though, it's not just the people aren't just young. It's not like young kids that suck. Like people in their 30s and 40s. I mean, they're not as good. I don't know. And when I say not as good, here I will qualify that. I will say, number one, the players are much less proactive. They are much more sit back, have story time told to me. Number two, I find that they struggle bus with rules. Like, I don't expect everyone to have the kind of rules base of game knowledge that say I have, or maybe a regular viewer of this channel has, with the exposure to numerous game systems and multiple mechanics. Totally. But I've left tables before because the players just could not get past, just the most simplest rule explanation. And so I moved away from that. It's kind of the reason why I've also stopped demoing board games as much at Gen Con and Origins, because people just don't understand rules anymore. Like, they just don't. And it's like the person teaching the game, maybe sometimes the person teaching the game isn't as qualified as they should be, but generally speaking, they're pretty good. They've been doing this, they know the game. Maybe they're not the best teacher, but still, people just really seem to just like not get it. And then third, this is more of a personal bugaboo. It's a con game. So this means that the social stakes are lower than they could ever possibly be. And there are a lot of people who play these games who are sometimes like just literally engaged in a different conversation with their friend or their partner while they're supposed to be in the game. They're certainly on their phone. They might have, back in the day, I might say that, they have their event catalog out, but now that's all online. But they're on their phone. They're, they are just completely checked out. And I just wonder why they're even there. Like you're here you sat down, they asked you if you wanted to demo this board game, and you said yes, and you're not interested in the board game, and you're not interested in asking questions about the board game, and you're not really paying attention, and you're not understanding the board game, and you're on your phone. So why did you sit down? I just struggle to understand that. And so all these things obviously, feed into one another, but the end result is and of course I'm just, I don't know, I'm more triggered by this than maybe other people. And so it just bothers me, it saddens me. Do you guys know who Alton Brown is? Anybody in chat? Alton Brown. He's a chef. Well, he's not really a chef, but he's a food guy. And he used to have a show called Good Eats, and he was one of my heroes. Back in the when I was like just out of college, he kind of taught me how to cook, because he really talked about it from very scientific principles. And I own all of his books. I've seen him live twice. So he's definitely like my favorite food guru type person, but he'll be the first to tell you, like, he was never like a Michelin. He was not like Bobby Flay or Anthony Bourdain or any of these other, Giada De Laurentiis or any of these other people who were, real chefs. He was just a cook in his respect. Anyways, Alton Brown's great, but Alton Brown did an interview, probably, I don't know, a couple years ago, and it was on Hot Ones, right? The Wing Show. And the interview guy was asking him a question about his Instagram reel, and Alton said something about like he likes to go grocery shopping late at night, and he said, but he gets really depressed when he goes grocery shopping. He goes, sometimes I have to just leave my cart where in the aisle and leave the store. And it sounded like he was being like hyperbolic, but like the interviewer Sean Evans kept pushing, and Alton said no. And he goes, I just get so depressed. And he goes, why? He said, just because of the choices that people are making and what they're putting in their carts and what they're buying and what they're not buying. And, just as someone who's engaged with the food industry, it makes me so sad and depressed that I have to leave. I'm not going to like correct them. I'm not going to tell them that they shouldn't buy this thing, but I can't be there. I have to leave. Anyways, that's how I started to feel at con games, where I was just like, you know what? You guys are enjoying this. This is how you want to engage with the game, but I can't be here. This is too depressing for me. So, peace out. And good luck. So anyways, my experience with con games has definitely gone, through a roller coaster of that end, Sure. Okay. That's fair. But see, this is the difference though, between me and you, Beowulf. The difference between me and you is that I can respect people who are very passionate about a game that they care about. And you can't, because you have this moral judgment to role-playing games. You have this belief that role-playing games are supposed to be this elevated form of human spirituality. And I don't. I think they're games, and I think people are entitled to engage with and play games in whatever way they see best fit. So, but that's like one of those, literally, I don't hate I don't hate the sinner, I hate the sin type excuses. And I do think that that's kind of a bullshit excuse. So, I mean, obviously, I love and respect you, but I'm just saying that like, that's where I think that is a flawed mistake, Edward, have a good night, morning, day. Yeah, who knows what it is? Gonna have to catch the VOD. Edward, don't. It'll be terrible. Although, Edward, I've got at least another 2 hours that I need to stream. And so there's a good chance that we will start talking about Daggerheart and Dagger Reaches at some point once we're done talking about esoteric philosophical concepts. Yuval, I made this comment years ago about my nephews. And I said, I found that it was like, I didn't find them particularly interesting. And my mom, their grandma was like, why? And I was like, I don't care what they're into. It doesn't have to be something that I'm into. I would love it if they were into board games and role-playing games. That'd be cool. But they're not. But if they were into something I don't like football, but if they were passionate about it and they cared about it, then that would be really cool for me. Like to see them engaged with it and to hear them get excited about it and to be excited to play and excited about getting new equipment and maybe going to a summer camp. And I would love to help fund that and pay for that and, however I can support that. Even if it's not a thing that I'm passionate about, passionate people are interesting. The old Flagpole Sitta song from Harvey Danger for those of us who grew up in the 90s. If you're bored, then you're boring. So I don't necessarily need you to like something that I like. I just need you to be passionate, and interested in something because interesting people are always interested. Or another way to say it is interested people are interesting. True, but it was always kind of cool for high schoolers to not care, So Beowulf says, we're getting into like the therapy part of it. Honestly, I'm just jealous of those type of game success and sad that they suck up so much of the player pool. Yeah, but ask yourself something though, Beowulf, would that type of player, if that game didn't exist, they just wouldn't be a player. It's not like they're like, oh, I'm going to play any sort of RPG. Like if that type of person was playing in your game, they wouldn't be interested or a good player. Exactly. It's good that they suck the unfit players out of the pool, right? Like if you have somebody who really wants to get deep into, feat builds and grid-based combat, then it's awesome that they can go play Lancer or Pathfinder 2 or Starfinder 2. Like, why would I want that person playing in my, Ryutama game? That's not fun for them. It's not fun for me. So it's not quite it's not exactly the same thing. D Priest said, I've seen a trend in a lot of different types of media engagement where people are joining for a sense of experience, not to do the thing. Okay. Well, it's a long time ago. 2016, 2017. I was doing the math. I was like 34. And it's a long story, but I ended up meeting this girl at a bar, and she was 23. So, 11 years younger than me. 23, I'm 34. But I don't have any kids, and I'm young and I'm young-ish in my mind, and I do young cool things. Like I like to travel, and I like to do that. I'm not an old. All my friends, they were married with kids. I was, I liked going out and I liked doing stuff. So, anyways, I found myself surrounded by a lot of younger people in general. Anyways, I ended up dating this girl, and it was a really interesting experience, but it was really horrible. And the reason why I say it was really horrible is because at a certain point, we would go places just so that she could take a picture of her at the place and then put it on her Instagram. She didn't really actually care about being or doing the thing that we were at the place. Like, we would go see a show, a musical, or we would go on a vacation, and it was very like it was all about like as soon as she got the really good Instagram pic, she didn't really care about anything the rest of it. It didn't. In fact, she would get mad only if like she couldn't get a good Instagram pic. And so she didn't actually care about doing the thing. She just cared that like other people could see that she was doing the thing and then like heart it and then leave a comment that was like, oh my God, OMG, so jealous. OMG, so beautiful. Oh, whatever. And that was like a very interesting moment for me because I was like, okay, weird. And I obviously found it very annoying. I'm like, well, why are we going on this trip if you don't really want to go on this trip? You just want people to know that you went on this trip. Very strange. Yeah. I mean, Kendall, I certainly appreciate that, I have found that, real life is a bitch. There's no doubt about that. And people's priorities change. And so, yeah, part of the problem with hobbies is they're very optional. And so when, you've got 17 other priorities in front of them, like, the house and the husband and the kids and the aging parents and, his aging parents and the status of the car and your status of your career. And when all that stuff ends up, coming out in front, then, something's got to go. And it's usually the hobbies, especially the hobbies that require other people. I get frustrated sometimes. My primary play group is composed of people who all have kids, between the ages of like 11 and 6 or something like that, or 11 and, it's like 11 and 5, 11 and 6. I don't even know how the youngest are. So they're never free, basically. Whereas I understand in some sense of the word, like the appeal of, say, Netflix or a video game where I don't need anybody else. I just need me, right? I can just sit down and play Baldur's Gate 3 and I don't need to check or clear it with anybody else. I see where that could be very, very appealing. What is PAX? PAX is Penny Arcade Expo. And expo meaning it's an exposition, meaning it's a convention. Penny Arcade is a webcomic / nerd video game blog that was created, 20 years ago by 2 Seattle-based artists, Gabe and Jerry. And they kind of became this kind of like powerful nerd sort of centric thing before like we really got influencers. And so they started hosting their own convention, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And now it's a pretty sizable little convention that they've got with many, many tens of thousands of people who go every year. And there's the PAX West is in Seattle. It's their primary convention. So, yeah, it's not great, it's not great. And in fact, that you say that, Yes and Dragons, I have sometimes criticized members of my own community because I said, stop being so obsessed with how many role-playing games you've played and start thinking about like how good were they. And I think there can be an obsession with just sort of like checking the box as opposed to really engaging, Oh, Shadram. Yes. Because what she would get, like I said before, she would get furious. She would take a pic. She would go to somewhere. We'd do something. And then she would take a picture and then she'd post it. And if it didn't get engagement, like right away, and she would be furious. And she'd be like, oh, this was like such a total waste of time. I was like, oh my God, I hate you. Oh, completely. I mean, it's diabolical what they are designed to, they are designed to prey on your attention, because your attention is valuable to somebody and people will pay for your attention. So the question then is, how do we get scientifically design ourselves so that we can steal, that we can manipulate, that we can grab your attention and own it? So super, super predatory. Fair enough, Chandra. It's fair enough. Be the GM. You're the one with all the work to do. Now, this is the advantage that online play gives us, is that we can find those like-minded people rather than just the people that happen to be in the area around us or the people that we grew up playing with. So, I think a lot of people love NR for that reason, because you can sort of customize and find your niche community and ideally, get to play and respond with them. It doesn't hurt that you also have a community of 30, 40, 50 plus players, which means that, while there may be some people who are more interested in your games than others, if one person can't make it, or two people, it's like, well, you don't have to sell it to 5 people only. You're selling it to 20 people. And as long as 5 of those 20 are interested and available, then your game can move forward, I don't know what that is, Keith. Sounds gross. I've been to Seattle before. So if that's like a Seattle thing, I've been there like twice, maybe 3 times, mostly for Magic. Well, I also think, Yuval, that this is the reason why we've seen an increase, a spike in the popularity of solo RPGs, journaling RPGs, which completely don't interest me at all. But I think we've seen the rise of that for a lot of reasons. One, because I think people can't find a group, or 2, people don't want to find a group. So, yeah, I mean, not to. I mean, look, I am on a screen, especially, now that I'm doing this YouTube thing, I'm on a screen a lot, and I'm on my phone a lot, especially on my own Discord. So I am not trying to be the person in a glass house throwing a stone, but watching those kids in Texas, literally, like, I mean, it's not even like one of those like, oh, look at them, they're so pathetic. I'm like, no, they are like seriously going through withdrawal now that the phones are banned in school and they have to put them in those safety pouches, and like seeing the physical reaction, like they just do not know how to respond. And one of the things, somebody was saying something about it, and I responded to them and I said, when was the last time you went to the bathroom without your phone and you had to sit there? It's probably been a long time. So, try that, try going a day without touching your phone. I think you'd be surprised, and it's easy to cast, stones at those people. There's a balance, right? There's a balance. You do need, I think, getting exposed to people. Like, for example, I would never, if someone told me I read Lord of the Rings and Wizard of the Earthsea and I never read anything else, and I just read those same 8-10 books over and over and over again, and I don't read anything else, you'd be like, what is wrong with you? Like, you should expose yourself to other books and maybe some other genres. But I think there's a balance, right? You should try to find your lane. Well, it worked out. We've seen a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people joined for NR, and then they ended up finding another game that they enjoyed even more, or they found they couldn't play and stayed for the community. So I think everyone has a different way of joining into the nights. But you know, as long as you're getting value and you find you enjoy it, I think that's the most important part. No, you're looking for more games that you can hack into Pendragon. Any thoughts on the Cortex Kickstarter? Didn't even know there was a Cortex Kickstarter. I mean, fine. Yeah, you want to. People will be like, "Oh, I'm totally fine without a phone." I'm like, "Okay, what about a computer?" And they're like, "Well, I'm on my computer all day." Yeah. See, there you go. So. Oh, you're currently reading Teanu. Now, see, some people don't consider Teanu part of the Earthsea cycle, but I think I do. And then after you read Teanu, then you can go read like The Other Wind, and you can read Tales from Earthsea. Yeah, Fox, I will be at the Roll for Combat booth. We'll be over in the TTRPG section of wherever that is. But I don't know our booth number, but we'll be there. Me and Mr. Glicker will be running the Roll for Combat booth. We'll be hawking creature catalogs and Battle Zoo bestiaries and classic creature collection and Leshy dragons and Eldamon, and it'll be pretty good. Oh, by the way, let me see if I can bring this up. This is not perfect. I haven't dialed it in yet. Okay, I haven't dialed it in yet, but this is how crazy AI is. Let me see if I can bring this up. So, for those of you who don't know, I was on the hook to make an Eldamon theme song, right? You know, Pokemon has the theme song. You know, I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. Dun 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 dun. You're right, that one. So, anyways, it's been on my list of things to do for a long time, and I've just, I've never gotten around to it. Let me see. What happened to it? No, that doesn't seem right. How do I log out? Sign out. Maybe I signed in as Derek. Maybe signed in as Derek from Night's Last Call. Maybe. I just want to. This is very riveting stuff. I'd be like upset if it like got deleted. Oh, damn. I think it got deleted. Maybe it doesn't store it. Anyways, all right. Well, since it got terrible, what is going on? Nope. Huh, interesting. Oh, I know what the problem is. I am not at Sono AI. I'm at Sono, which is different than Sono AI. Crazy. Okay. Don't get hooked. My music. Here we go. Okay. All right, you ready? Now it's not perfect. I haven't mastered it yet, okay? But I haven't like completely got it where I want it to be, but it's pretty good. I think. We'll see. It's got a little country twang, I admit.
On the road to adventure, the journey's just begun. With spirits by my side, together we are one. From fires burning hard to the whisper of the breeze, I'll find them, I'll train them with
All right. Verse 2. Verse 2 is very good.
In shadows and in sunlight, in mountain seas and skies, the magic of their laughter is shining in their eyes. With every new companion, my spirit starts to grow. The power of our friendship is all I need to know. I'll catch the spark, I'll learn their name. Together we'll rise, together we'll flame. Through every trial, I'll stand so strong. With friends like these, I can't go wrong.
All right. Anyways, so that's it's crazy what AI could do. Let's just say that. All right. I wouldn't have personally made it, so country twangy, but for the fact that like no one made that, and then it took like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. But no, yeah, that's where I found out about that site, was that interview with Rick Beto, who I watch. I subscribe to Rick Beto. He's got an incredible YouTube channel. Again, I don't know anything about music, right? But I follow a lot of musicians on YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube musicians. I love Rick Beto. I love Rob Scallion. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a strange. I think that's something that some people miss. And I we talk about gatekeeping, right? Like, I suck at art. I suck at drawing. I suck so bad. In my life, I have bought so many books on how to draw, and I've spent a lot, and I have never been good at making art. I have cool ideas for images and compositions, but I cannot make it real. And so there's a sort of democratization. It may come at some questionable costs of how it was trained and all that other stuff. But I will say, outside of any sort of moral ambiguities, the ability, even if it's not perfect, even if it has 27 fingers, the ability for me to kind of try to, express what I have, vision I have, and then see it come to life as an image is awesome. And it makes me jealous of people who can actually just, go and draw whatever they want to draw, because I'm like, wow, like I got a brief taste of what it would be like to have a vision for an image and then to, work on it. In my case, I'm, trying to take image, prompt engineering and maybe some reference images, and then to get something that comes out and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. So that's like magic to me. And I have never been able to do it. I've never been good at doing it. I've tried to do it. It's not something I possess. And so I understand that the people who do that are kind of protective of that, right? Like no, this is my thing. You don't get to do it. I get it. I understand. But I also feel like it's pretty cool. And for some, schlub like me who sucks at art, being able to like say, oh, it'd be cool for me to be able to make my own image of my character or whatever like that. Like I find it to be very empowering and cool. And so, yeah, again, there are legitimate concerns about how to regulate AI, and I'm not convinced that, we are going to kill ourselves a la Skynet at some point. Shout out Skynet. But yeah, it's kind of a cool and interesting experience. And again, it's not quite the same, but like, it's like, I imagine it's similar to somebody like a producer. Forget AI. A producer sits down and they go, I'm going to craft a beat. I'm Timbaland. I'm going to craft a beat. And you bring in a bunch of music samples, right? drum hits, hi-hats, snares, toms, right? Some bass lines. And, you know, you're putting them into whatever, GarageBand or whatever it's called. What's the name of that? Whatever. You know, one of those music producer things where you can quantize everything. And you know, you're sitting there like, okay, I want toms on the you know, on the eighth notes. Boom, 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 boom. You know, and I want to put a little bit of ride the snare a little bit, or ride the hi-hat. Close the hi-hat down, right? And you're teaking all these things, and then somebody makes a beat, and everyone's go, wow, that's really cool. But it's like, but if you're a drummer, aren't you kind of like, well, this person fucking doesn't know how to play a drum. You know, they push buttons and it tweaks things on a slider, and you're like, why? I'm a drummer. If you want a drum beat, you should go get a drummer. You shouldn't be playing around in GarageBand. You know, you shouldn't be playing around in whatever the one's called. Why can't I think of the name? Ableton. That's the one I was trying to think of. Ableton, because it's free. I played around with Ableton back in the day when I was really into techno music, right? And I was like, oh, hey, look, these people make tracks and they don't know how to play instruments, but you know, they know they can listen to it and they can hear what they want to do, and then they can quantize it. But like, yeah, no, a beat is not the same thing as playing drums, and generating AI is not, you know, image is not the same as actually making art. All I'm simply saying is there's a way for people to, you know, someone like Timbaland has been very successful in his career, you know, basically using things like, you know, Ableton or whatever what's the really expensive one that is usually connected with Apple? Expensive Apple DAW. Logic. That's the one I'm thinking of. Anyways. But yeah, point is. Guitar players got mad at Guitar Hero. Sure, why not? I remember there's this it's a great question. All right. It's a great question. Let me see if I can find it here. I mean, if you played Garage, you know, if you played, you know, Rock Band or Guitar Hero during the whatever era when that was the shit, you know what this is. But like, this was a very famous video, you know, that went, you know, quasi viral, and you know, this person's whatever, you know, so this is obviously extremely difficult, you know. Right? It's crazy. It's nonsense. And somebody was like, bro, you could have just learned to play guitar. like playing it in real life isn't that difficult. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Kendall. Exactly. So, you know, like getting 100% accurate on the freaking little ColecoVision guitar is actually harder than playing it in real life. And like, yeah, I mean, like, cause the real instrument has multiple strings, you know, so you could make a chord, you know, you can make a hand position, you can make a chord position, and you're hitting multiple notes, right, with one strum. That doesn't have that, so you have to hand pick, you know, essentially every note. Anyways, hey, Gina, thank you.
Goblins and androids tipped $25. Good morning and have fun at PAX.
Oh, good morning to you. Yeah, I'm leaving here in a couple hours. Gina, thank you so much. Gina, what did you end up making for Dragontide? I'm curious. You wanted to be a duck. You're not a duck. You're a wolfkin. But what is your class? What is your profession? Sorry, gotta get it right here. Let's see if I do that on Beat Saber. Beat Saber is kind of cool. Oh, you rolled a human knight? Sick. Nice, Tom. Knight's a great. I don't know if we. Did we tweak the knight's starting gear? We talked about it. I don't know what. See, here's the thing. I was working on Dragon Tide until my life fell apart, and then it kind of like was in like, Valhalla. It was kind of in limbo for 6 months or so, and then Bob kind of picked it up and carried it across the finish line. I don't know what changes he made, but yeah, we got rid of the full plate. Yeah, okay. I mean, to be fair, Tom, come on. Yeah, okay. It's way too good. I mean, chainmail's still great. You can get a helmet, you can get a shield. You could be in a good spot. But with the starting heroic, it's just too good to be in full. Everybody knows Mikander is like a broken ass pre-gen. Beowulf, you have to be in one of our mega games. You have to be a champion tier. So that's $10 a month, $10 US a month, as opposed to $5 US a month. Yeah, Dragon Tide. We are in the pre-launch right now. Bob just not, he hasn't really been like hyping it up too much, even though you'd think he would be. But Bob just wants to make a character, I think, and just play more Dragonbane, and then tell his wife it's for the channel, honey. This is important. This is how I make that extra money. Okay. I mean, yeah, Tom. I mean, obviously you chose Knight knowing that was the qualification, or at least whatever. But it's too much. What's another one? I think we don't let the Mariner start with the spyglass either. I think because it's like busted or somebody. I don't know. There's another piece of gear that's like really expensive and like really good, and I think we also I think it gives you like a permanent boon on like bushcraft checks or something. I don't know. I commissioned my friend, a very talented amateur composer and musician, for our theme song. If anyone needs music for a game or show, I can pass this info along. Commission. Right. And Yes and Dragons. I mean, I think that's awesome. And I respect the hell out of it. And, I wish everybody had the kind of disposable income to do that. When we did our night school series, we had Ben make us a cool little kind of Hot for Teacher inspired little 80s guitar riff snippet stem that he put together for us. So it was awesome. That was cool. And, obviously not everybody gets that, has someone, a musician of Ben's caliber, just, hanging out in their Discord and wanting to throw them some cool tunes, Hey, what's up, May? Gonna run my first session of Draw Steel Thursday. Your videos absolutely sold me on it. Sweet. It is a very compelling game. If I was in that sort of 4E mindset, Lancer mindset right now, I think I'd be taking a much closer look at Draw Steel. The system solves a lot of the problems that I have with 4th edition. Maybe it introduces some new ones. We'll see. But I absolutely love that you can't miss in the combat. I love that you have to build up the heroic resource. I love the stacking victories. I think that's a really cool system, for sure. I am curious, are you running it online or are you running it in person? And if you are running it online, are you just, Owlbear Rodeo? Or are you using Codex? I don't know how far along they are on that. But I will say, when Codex fully is finished, if it is as integrated as I hope it will be, that alone may convince me to try to run it and play it. In fact, that might even be a situation where I'd prefer to play it online with that really awesome integrated VTT. What system is the mega game going to be using? I just got here. Well, we have 2 mega games now. We have Northern Reaches, which is Pathfinder 2, and then Dragon Tide, which uses Dragonbane. Dragon Tide was an idea that I had jokingly about using Dragonbane instead of Pathfinder 2 for Northern Reaches, because Dragonbane doesn't have levels. And at the time, we were really struggling with how to, we don't have enough players in any of our games that it's like World of Warcraft, where we can just have like a ton of people at all different levels. And so I said, well, Dragonbane solves that issue because it doesn't have levels. A brand new character, somebody who just made their character, could go play in a game with somebody who's played 20 sessions, 30 sessions. Sure, the person who's played 30 sessions might have some better skills, but with random ability scores, and there's no guarantee that you'll even get a skill up at the end of a session, because you have to roll for it. And as your skills get higher, it becomes harder and harder and harder for you to get skill ups. So there's a diminishing returns on getting your skills really high. So I said, oh, it would be a perfect game. And everyone's like, really? I was like, yeah, we could. And so we started like joking around with it. And then we ended up doing Southern Beaches for sort of as a fill-in season for Northern Reaches last year. But then this idea, I've always loved boats. And I don't even know how, I don't even remember the genesis of it. But basically my idea was Dragonbane, but with boats, and that became Dragontide. So it's set in an archipelago. There's the city of Stormhaven, which is sort of like the gateway to the archipelago, and the archipelago is islands of adventure, and the idea is that every GM basically gets to create their own island, and GMs can technically work together and co-GM an island. But you own that island. You can kind of tell your cool little stories there. And the idea is that players will be able to go there, different players, different groups, explore your island, kind of do some overland hex crawling, using some of the rules for that in Dragonbane, and then encounter adventure sites and explore those, and find cool ancient magics and cool relics. And you'll basically be able to kind of, your island is kind of like your home domain. You can kind of do whatever you want there. So at the same time, we're hoping that we can tell broader stories that affect the entire community, including the mystery of the Dragontide. Dun, dun, dun. I don't actually know if Bob has done anything with that, but that was like my background ideas there, is that the Dragontide is a thing. But War Historian. If WotC advertising deal with Critical Role pays off, could you foresee a scenario where Hasbro licenses D&D production to DEC? No. I don't think so. I don't think it'll ever happen. But, stranger things have happened, but I don't think it's happening. Oh, you're doing it in person. Okay, cool. I'm using Forged Steel to build and run the encounters. Is Forged Steel sort of like a fresh cut grass thing for Daggerheart? Trespasser's really cool. Yeah. A lot of fun for me. I mean, obviously I think Tundalus is great. I don't know. I mean, Tundalus, I think had some RIL stuff they had to deal with, and he stepped out of our Torchbearer game, and I haven't seen him really as much on the Patreon. And I don't know if he's had any massive updates since his last massive update. I know that he was basically burning it at both ends to get that last Trespasser updated. And so I think maybe he needed some well-deserved taking a breakage. Cool. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're trying to go for there, you'd consider signing up there. Well, a wyvern. I've always pronounced it wyvern, and some people, I guess it's pronounced wyvern, but I've always pronounced it wyvern. How do you pronounce it? Wyvern or wyvern? Yeah, I mean, Beowulf, it's like London, right? The other day when I hit level 90, I reached the elder god tier or whatever, which is just Ben and London. And obviously I technically have access to all those channels, but I respect the stairs of ascension, and I don't speak in channels that I have not earned. And so I hit level 90 and I posted, I was like, I have arrived. And the only thing was I got a thumbs up from London. That was it. Right away. So he's there. Just, laying low. Fresh Cut Grass is a made by the community freeware version of the Encounter Builder. Yeah. A bunch of wyverns. Okay. But wyvern. All right. I'm gonna agree with Anna there. Yeah, Trespasser's great. I mean, I mean, Sparks and Shadows, I think, is is such an awesome game concept, and I think it's a great way of tying the fiction into the mechanics in a very, very innovative and player agency filled way. I think it's great. But yeah, so the Wyvern, jokingly, people, as soon as Daggerheart came out, people were immediately like, Dagger Reaches, joking because Northern Reaches is our Pathfinder 2 mega game, so we call it Dagger Reaches. So I actually started a thread in our Daggerheart design forum called, Theoretical Dagger Reaches, and we've been talking about it for a long time. Like the last month. There's definitely a lot of interest. It's just, there's a lot of things to figure out, and community games always have extra requirements that we have to sort of take into consideration. But I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it, especially because it's a new game, and I bet people are, people want to get into games, and this would be I'm kind of biased, but I think Northern Reaches is pretty fucking sweet. I think some of the stories that we have told over the last couple of years are really, really cool. I think playing in that kind of experience, that kind of game experience, could be a really, really neat, could be a really neat experience. So why not get people? And so if people are interested in Daggerheart, why not? The issue is that it's a new game, so there's going to be a lot of people who want to play it, but how many people want to run it for it? And quite frankly, how many people know what they're doing? Obviously, we now have Foundry Born, so we also want to have probably fairly good tools. So one of the reasons why we were kind of just keeping it on the back burner is because Foundry Born community hadn't dropped their Foundry system yet. And realistically, for this to work, we do need to have some sort of, structured VTT. No, that is absolutely not what I want to do. A lot of people always say that with any of our mega games, and I think the problem with that is that takes away from the mega community. In fact, there's a lot of so-called West Marches games, 5e, other systems that are out there, and they basically work like that, where each GM basically gets their own campaign, and the players just, are a communal pool. Now that's interesting that you say that, Sims 3 Snowflake, because fundamentally there are no mechanics in Daggerheart that would make the game any more personal than, say, D&D, 5e, or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting that you say that. My issue with Daggerheart is that Daggerheart is a fiction-first game. And while every GM is different, the fact of the matter is when you run a game like Pathfinder 2, there's a pretty well-established base of rules so that you can expect a certain level of consistency from game to game. But when you have a fiction-first game like Daggerheart, then you might get very significant game experience differences with GM A versus GM B versus GM C. And that is something that we have to manage a little bit more. Now, granted, if you are in a fully Daggerheart mindset, if you are in a fully, fiction first, play to find out type of mindset, then it wouldn't hurt you because you'd be like, yeah, that was Platinus, 100%. But you might find this hard to believe, Platinus, but a lot of times people say they want a thing, they order the thing, and then when they get the thing, they're like, what the hell is this? It's one thing to like actions speak louder than words. And a lot of times, even when we make very clear what the expectations are, people still go, what the fuck? This GM did some bullshit thing that wasn't in the rules. And it's like, did it make sense? Yeah, it totally made sense in the fiction. We opened up this ancient seal, darkness spread out from it, and the GM said that all of our hope slots are now cursed, and whenever we use hope, the GM gains fear or something like blah blah. And I'm like, okay, that sounds awesome. They're like, no, that's completely broken. That's not in the rules. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It sounds like that's what happened in the fiction. I don't know what to tell you. You know, so that's and like that really honestly is what it comes down to. You may have just had, I don't know if all of you know the Daggerheart rules, but all of you may have just had a reaction internally, deep down inside, when I said that. You're playing in a game, and the GM, you open the thing, you get cursed, and now your hope slots are cursed, and whenever you spend your hope slots or whatever, the GM gets, you know, fear or something like that. And you might have just had a reaction. Your reaction might have been, wow, that sounds awesome. Or your reaction might have been like, oh my God, what a jackass. You know, what a dick. And that, you know, that kind of is the problem. You know, a lot of times people don't know what that reaction is going to be, or they think it sounds cool. They're like, yeah, because everybody thinks about the ceiling. They're like, oh, it'd be so cool because I'm going to be playing the game. And the GM's finally going to be like, dude, you totally gain the ability to shoot laser from your eyes. And you're like, yeah, of course I do. And you're like, oh, you totally get this broken magical item, even though it's not balanced. But what the fuck is balanced? You know, like we're playing Daggerheart, bro. It's fucking let's rock and roll. And everyone just sees only the upside. And then you play a game, and then the GM, you know, you get cursed, and your ancestry changes or something, you know, or the GM, you know, gives you something like that, and you know, you're forced to, I don't know, you're forced to change one of your cards, you know, in your vault, or the, you know, whatever, and you go, what the, no, that's no, that is not something that should be touched, so. We experience, you know, and this is not pointing any fingers at anybody because I've been dealing with this for years. You know, people are, you know, it's like everyone's fine with it until it happens to them, right? Yeah. Now, admittedly, my experience with this vast community of players, and by this point, I mean, we're talking 250, 300 unique players. You know, a lot of people have stuck with Northern Reaches for all, you know, 4 seasons, right? Three official seasons, 1 bonus season. 5 if you count Northman Challenge. But we've had players who played in season 1 who never played again. We had players who played in season 2 who never played again, right? So the unique number of people who've played in Northern Reaches is probably over 300. So it's a pretty wide gamut of people. So part of what I don't know is that kind of experience, is that kind of reaction to game and mechanics and all this other stuff, just a generic TTRPG community game issue, or is it something specific to PF2? Is it something specific to people who signed up looking to play PF2? And so does the system have an impact on people's reaction to the way that the game itself is presented? You know, so you could see here, Alia says a Daggerheart mega game would be a breeding ground. This is her thought. Would be a breeding ground for ruffled feathers since the rules do not oblige the GMs to run the game in overly specific ways. Correct. Now, on one hand, you might argue, well, wait, shouldn't that mean that the players then come in with an expectation that the GM is going to run the game according to the fiction and not necessarily according to some prescripted set of rules? You would think that. But that's not necessarily the way that people, you know, react. So yeah, but at that point, just go make community games of Daggerheart and just go start your own campaign and go play in it. And I think people should do that, and people are doing that. I don't know if Cal is still here, but Calderic is running a campaign frame. It's called like Daggerheart Dungeons or something like that. And he's trying to do like an old school dungeon crawl campaign style frame in Daggerheart. But if you're going to do that, Beowulf, there's literally no point in doing a mega game. You should just go run. A GM should just go run their own game, and you should sign up for it and then play in it. And that's totally awesome. You should totally do that. Right. Right. But the difference Mecha Maya. This is where, because like, in Northern Reaches, GMs get their own dungeons or they get their own adventures. The difference is how it ties into the mega game community system. And Dragontide very much will still have events and will still have clocks and tickets and all this other stuff. So for example, Mecha Maya, one of the changes that we do to Dragontide, a system that Bob and I designed, is called the voyage phase, the sea voyage phase. And at the start of every session, you have to take a boat to go to your island of adventure. And it's sort of like a mini game. It's not like a super long, it's not like a full combat encounter. It involves rolling on some random tables and the players making some skill checks and some role playing. And, it's really just designed to sort of shake things up so that right off the bat, the session may go differently than you expected it to. And I don't know if D Priest is still here, but this is something that in Dragontide I feel very much more comfortable doing with this because this is a core assumption from the beginning of the game. Anyways, it's a table, and we might say, hey, because of events that happen at someone's island adventure, there are now undead pirates that are sailing the sea lanes, and we are going to go to that sea voyage table, and we are going to replace some of the entries, some of the good entries, with undead pirates attack. And so the events that happened on one island in one adventure, now ideally it wouldn't just be like one single session, but instead it might be like this, maybe a GM builds up a story about some ancient undead crew, and they're slowly awakening, and the players fail to awaken them, and they awaken, and now that the ghostly damned man their ships and take to the seas to reclaim what's theirs. Cool. I might change that sea voyage table, and then now, undead pirates are attacking you, even though you didn't do anything and didn't have to do anything with it. And the community may have to decide how to handle that problem. Now, again, there are people that really like that, and that's why they play the game. And then there are people that hate that because they say, hey, that's not what I want to do. What's up, Jess? I'm very behind. Not sure if this has been discussed at all, but if you have time, go to Off the Res Cafe, the restaurant of the Burke Museum in the University District. Very good fry bread tacos. Well, no, it has not been discussed where I should go get food to eat. But if it's nearby, I mean, I don't know. I've been to Seattle twice. I've been to the convention center, but just to play Magic. So I don't actually know where PAX is. But hey, Jess. Jess, I hope you can make it to PAX Unplugged. Apparently, I am definitely going now, so it'd be cool to hang out with you again. Okay. Spoken like an expert. All right. Well, let me jot this down. I don't have my phone. It's charging. I'll check it out. So, off the res. Interesting. Oh, I don't need. Oh, man. Wow, that sounds awesome. Well, that all sounds delicious. And you know what? Glicker's paying, so I'll definitely suggest it. Thanks, Jess. Sorry, there was a couple of questions here. Well, okay, the difference, Beowulf, though, is what I was just describing. I took a presumption that in your situation, what happens in one world portal won't really affect or change what happens in other world portals. That is exactly what I don't want to happen in a mega game, in a mega community game. That's my personal belief. So the difference is that the islands of the Dragontide game are still part of the same sea. They're still part of the same archipelago. The events and clocks that are affecting the seas and the weather and the whatever will affect everyone. So that's why it's not exactly the same as Dragontide. Now, that I don't know if that's what you meant, but when I heard people going through portals to go experience adventure in some GM's realm, I sort of was imagining as that realm as being fairly autonomous and not really impacted or affected by other events occurring in other GM's games or vice versa. Have you thought about how the system interferes with what you want to do or for your players? Dustingo, you provided me with a little bit. Maybe I missed something up ahead, or maybe you weren't even talking to me, but maybe you can provide me with a little bit more distinct there. I'm a little bit behind, sorry. The Sea Voyage game sounds awesome. I mean, it's not as awesome as I wanted it to be, Beowulf. Correct. Here's the problem, though, right? We still get that even with PF2. So, that GMs run games very differently. We have GMs who basically run combat-less games, and then we have some GMs who run games that have no plot and they're just a string of combats together. So. Is the $10 tier required for all games on the server or just the Northern Reaches Dragon? Just the Northern Reaches Dragon. You can join at any leather, Keithor. You get full access to all of our community games that you run or that other players are running. You can sign up for anything. You get access to essentially all the channels, everything. The $10 tier is just because the mega games require extra effort from me and Bob. And so, that there's more work involved. And so that's why we have that there. Well, fiction bleed over becoming a problem in Daggertide. That's exactly the point of playing in a community game. The whole point of playing in a community game is for fiction bleed. The problem is that some GMs they think they want to be a GM because they want to just run the game that they want to run, which is awesome, and you should do that. That's what you should go run your own game. In fact, one of the things about Night's Last Call is we give you a lot of tools. We give you Forge servers. We give you Foundry licenses, modules, upgrades, whatever you need in order to run a game for our community members. We'll fucking give it to you. So if you don't want that fictional bleed over, my advice would be don't play in the mega game. The whole point of playing the mega game is, is so that you kind of, the point of playing the mega game is so that kind of like you are getting fucked with by other people. Dagger Dark. Yeah, I mean, look, there might be a way to do it. I don't know that dungeon crawling is the best use of Daggerheart, but maybe. Daggerheart plus Shadow Dark. I mean, those are two very popular games. Dagger Dark, Shadowheart. Shadowheart, right, is the name of that character from BG3. But yeah, that's way too much work. I would never do that. I mean, someone else might do it, but I wouldn't do that. That's just not my thing. I don't mind the idea of having some broad themes that are controlled by me to the point where we might have different zones, which we used to have in season 1 of Northern Reaches. And a zone might have some specific campaign frame like element in order to help shape player expectations. But I'm not making each GM basically have their own campaign frame. That's just the way I would do it. Yeah, Mechamaya. I mean, you just literally described a big problem that we just had in Northern Reaches. There was an event that caused an assassins guild to they were attacking people, and so at the beginning of every session, you had to roll a die. This was a requirement, and if you rolled like a 1 or something or a 2 or whatever, assassins attacked. So then you had people who were setting up a session, and they were like, hey, this is going to be a session with a lot of role playing and social skills and no combat, or essentially minimal combat, and we're going to go do these things. And people go, cool, and they all signed up for it. And that's what the GM wanted to run. That's what the players wanted to do. But now the game says, but you have to roll on this die, and if you roll a 1 on the D20, then ninja assassins attack. And it caused friction. It caused problems because people felt like, I can't run the game that I want to run. Now, rightfully so, you could say, well, that's the way that the community game works, which is fair. But GMs don't have to run games. It's an optional. I don't pay them. So if a GM says, well, that event sounds terrible, that isn't the type of game I want to run, I just won't run a game then. And that's not a good outcome. It's not a good outcome for the game. It's not a good outcome for that GM. It's not a good outcome for the players. And so, that it's a very complicated situation. Now, I personally, obviously Starfinder 2 is out, and I think it'd be really cool to do a Starfinder 2 mega game, but a lot of people are worried that would split the Pathfinder 2, Starfinder 2 community. And so instead, they're sort of making inroads to trying to bring Starfinder elements into the existing Northern Reaches game. And I'm actually I'm against that. But I also agree that it's not my game. It's everybody's game. So I don't want to be like the deciding vote. Thanks, Kendall. Well, the problem with that is, people don't, I mean, they're not being paid, so they want to play the game. They want to run games. You know what I mean? So I personally think it's weird, but who am I? I'm not, I'm not the be all end all. So, what my original idea, this is not what it is right now, by the way. This is how far we got with these ideas. All right. So originally, my plan for one second, actually. All right, there we go. Originally, my plan for the Dragontide was actually that we were going to sort of have a 3-part system where you were going to have adventuring, where you leave the city and, you've got a GM plus, 3 to 5 players, and it's pretty standard, 3 to 5 hours. And you go on adventure, and you basically, you're basically just playing Dragonbane at that point. You're not really doing anything. I mean, there's going to be some changes and all that other stuff, but just basically the generic. This is what we have in, sort of Northern Reaches. But one of the things that I wanted to experiment with the idea was, we had heard from so many people, and I've seen with season 3 of Northern Reaches, there are people who basically don't really play the game, but they spend all day playing the game. And we've expanded the scope of the ability for people to play without actually playing, and I really wanted to focus on that in Dragontide more so than in any other game that we've done. And that was this sort of idea of the town. And the idea of this was to create a solo game experience. And we've included solo elements before, but they were always pretty basic. It was just kind of like, it was like make a check, make a skill check, or it was, spend a downtime action. And there wasn't a lot of play to it. There wasn't a lot of engagement to it. So I wanted to create a GM-less, probably like bot-driven game experience that people could engage with, and maybe there's enough game content there that if you put 1 to 2 hours in a week, you can kind of quote unquote do it all, and that's perfect, right? That was perfect for people who they're like, look, I want to be engaged with the game, but I will never be able to play for 3 to 5 hours. I just or I live in some terrible time slot, and I there's no way I'm ever going to be able to get a GM and 3 PCs together. But I like the game. I like talking with people in the Discord. I want to be able to contribute to the town, and I want to be able to kind of contribute to the system. And so I wanted to create a really, really robust town game that would allow players. Now, to be fair, it wasn't one or the other. You could do both, but you might have some characters that even the PCs themselves can do both. But you might have a PC that is more built towards adventuring. Your character is a expert sword fighter. Great, that's going to be excellent for adventuring. But if you were a merchant or a scholar or an artisan, your PC itself might be quote unquote better at the town solo game than you are at the adventuring standard role-playing game. That's not to say that your merchant couldn't go on an adventure. Of course they could. But they might have very different skills, and they might have different elements to their character. But the idea was I still wanted to create a compelling enough game experience that somebody would be able to play with this. Now, Zen Bullet, again, I've talked about solo gaming as well, but that's the difference, Zen Bullet, is this isn't a true solo game because the mechanics are solo. But you would be interacting with other players, both townspeople and adventurers, through the chats in the Discord. So you might only have 1 to 2 hours a week of sort of mechanical interaction, but you could potentially be spending hours chatting with people, role-playing with people, talking to people, making plans, making decisions. How do we want to use the town's resources to confront the pirate threat, right? Do we want to destroy them or do we want to bribe them? And which is going to be better, So it's a bit like adding a play-by-post element to the mega game. And to be completely honest with you, we have in Northern Reaches Season 3 some very strong play-by-post elements that are in the game. Now, they aren't fully functionally structured out like this, where there's like this sort of solo mini game, but there's a lot of people who spend a lot of their time kind of creating essentially a town-based stuff on their own. It's called a venue system where players actually create their own sort of place in town. Other players can visit it. They can make use of your action. There's a lot of role-playing that goes on there. There's even a separate bot that tracks how much you're chatting and kind of awards you XP depending on how much you're chatting in the venues, in theory, in character. But there was a third element that I wanted to add. This was the penultimate goal. It's a 3-part system. So I wanted to have an adventuring phase, I wanted to have a town phase, and then I wanted to have a ship game phase. And this, I literally wanted to create a co-op RPG light quasi board game. to the point where I was actually thinking of designing it like on TTS. And basically, I wanted to give people an option that they could play, because one of the key conceits of this game is that players will be able to eventually craft and build, right, their own sailing ships, right, and have their own their own sailing ships and kind of customize them and make them cool, and all this other stuff. And so we like this idea of like, and the idea is that you use your ship to get from town through that sea voyage phase to go to the adventure. But I like the idea of creating sort of a co-op game where a bunch of people could get together, and as long as one of the PCs, because the idea was that a ship would be aspirational, that it might not be something that everybody has. I mean, maybe eventually every character, claims that they have a rowboat, with some oars, sticking off the side. Maybe they get a little rowboat. But to have like a proper ship, is sort of an aspirational goal. Not every PC is going to care about that. Not every PC is going to be able to do that. So the idea was that if you had a bunch of people who are online, and one of them had a ship, you could take your PCs and go play this ship game, which would essentially be, again, a co-op, GM-less, RPG light, quasi board game, where you would essentially sort of, there'd be some sort of deck of challenges, and you'd have to, draw from them, and it'd be like I said, RPG light. And the events of that co-op game would affect your character. They would affect the town. They would affect the islands, right? It would contribute the same way that going on an adventure would, or that doing stuff in town is. But this way, you had all these different ways to play. You could play in a very traditional RPG experience where you and a GM and a bunch of players organize it, get together, and you go and play. You could do it as a solo exercise where you maybe can't ever get into a game, but you can still contribute and still be part of the game. Or we don't have a GM. Everybody wants to play. Hey, no one's running a game tonight. Do you guys want to go do a ship game? And everyone says yes. And not only that, it's a slightly different experience, right? Like, it's not just another version of RPG. If you want to go play the RPG, go do an adventure. But for people who kind of like some of the more of the board gamey elements, and again, all of these are optional. Or you could do all three. Maybe you're a kick-ass knight who goes adventuring on their awesome ship that they are the captain of, that they've built up. And then in town, you're also a very eloquent noble who's managed to accumulate a ton of influence on the city council, and you're shaping the direction that the city of Stormhaven is going. So this was the original Derek 10,000 square foot or 10,000 square foot, 10,000 foot view, 100,000 foot view that I wanted to do. Now, obviously, my reach far exceeded my grasp here, not only because my personal life, kind of got in the way, but also some of these things would just have been very difficult for one man to make a reality. But this is what I originally wanted for Dragon Knight. And the real thing is, Bob basically very intelligently pointed out, Derek, you're going to do all this, and 20 players are going to play, and and 18 of them would already be patrons. so you'll get 2 new people at $10, a month, and you will make $20 a month, and I was like, yep, that's probably true. Why did that not get captured? We got a super chat from Alexander. Thank you, Alexander. Dragonheart question. What if you make the tier 3 and 4 forms be domain cards over level 5? That way multiclassing can't get the most powerful forms, and it makes druids pick a transformation instead of a spell. I love it. I think that's a great idea. In fact, Alexander, I don't know if you watch our other things, but one of the ideas that I have for Derek Heart, where I basically fundamentally redesigned the game of Daggerheart, is I wanted to basically blow up the Sage domain and replace it with the Primal domain. And the Primal domain would consist of domain cards, which were 2-sided.
One side would be the sort of the verdant side, which would deal with like plants and healing, and the other side would be the beast side. And when a druid shape changed, you would flip your cards over, and so then your beast cards would become active, and therefore naturally the beast cards and the powers of those beast cards would be tied to the domain, which means that if someone multi-classes into the game or into the druid, they can only take domain cards of half their level. Well, so it naturally keeps them from accessing the most powerful of the domain abilities. So your idea seems far more easy to implement, and I think it's totally reasonable for sure. Another option could be tying into a subclass. That's another option for sure. Zen, that's kind of cool. I like that. Yeah, that's a really neat idea. Playing around with the variant advancements. Yeah, that's cool. You know, treating it like multi-classing. Yeah, I think that's really neat. You know, personally, I would love to see class specific advancement charts instead of generic. And we've already started to see that a little bit with, right, with the Void, right? The Brawler technically has their own, you know, it's the same as everybody else, but the Brawler technically gets an extra box, which is like to upgrade their combo die, right? So technically the Brawler has these extra advancement tick boxes. So I think that creating sort of unique class advancements is kind of neat. I mean, I understand why they did what they did, because they want to make the game very, you know, it's already a huge leap for most people to look at Daggerheart, you know. So for me to make, you know, this advancement thing, it's kind of crazy. Okay, creepy. I ran my last Daggerheart session with your evasion rule, and it worked very well. By evasion rule, creepy, you mean you had the PCs make the evasion roll? Or do you mean you made it a reaction roll and they rolled a d20? Or do you mean you made it a reaction roll and they still rolled 2d12? Because I've had several different insane ideas. Not all of them good. Brave, but not good. But thank you, Alexander. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's a really cool option. And again, I think the druid thing is just, it's not only that it's powerful. I do think it's really powerful. It's just too boring. It's just too accessible. And I just don't think, for me personally, I just don't think that's necessarily something that is so core to the druid's concept, you know. I want the damn boat game, Darren. You and me both, buddy. That's it. No shit, you were like trying to invent what I first thought MMOs would be when they came out. And I know, right? So, and I'm trying to do it for 20 people. It's crazy. So cool. Neat. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways you could do it, creepy. You know, in terms of mathematics and making it work. I just, for me personally, I like that play pattern where the GM describes the attack and the player gets to describe the defense, and then the dice roll being in the player's hand makes them feel like they are the ones that are evading, especially when you call it evasion, right? I think it creates this, it creates the fictional feeling of it being proactive. And I think as players, we psychologically connect proactivity with rolling the die. And so when you're not rolling the dice, I think we feel very static, and I think we feel very reactive. And so I like the idea of putting it sort of into the player's hands in that respect. But I think it just creates a more, I don't even know what to describe it. It's like, you know, cybernetic, but not in like the word that it's used nowadays, but like the original meaning of the word cybernetic. This sort of connection between things. I think that's what cybernetics originally meant. Yeah, the study of control and communication in living beings and machines, and the style of regulation and information in animals and machines. Yeah, The study of controlled communication in the animal and the machine. So the animal is us, the machine is the system, right? Yeah. So my thought process, Yes and Dragons, was that I like having this sort of complete rule, right? Which is that a 2d12